So welcome to our podcast. Today we're going to discuss about one of the main topic that is talking about managing burnouts. How HR being in HR you become a lifeline or you become a part of a problem. So today we have Deepa with us, and we both share 14 years of experience into HR, and we felt a need of discussing on this topic because being into 14 years into HR, we are able to see a lot of nuances that defines burnout into different angles of how we can see it in terms of psychology, in terms of how corporate policies can be developed around it, and how we can help those people who are suffering from burnout or on the verge of burnout. So this is where we would be defining how burnout is a crucial part when it comes to corporate culture.
Thank you, Abhijit, for having me. So it's great to be here. Before we deep dive into the discussion, more about how the burnout is. So let's define. So Abhijit, can you help us to define what do you mean by burnout and how it is different from regular stress?
Now, burnout is a state of emotional and physical and mental exhaustion, which is caused by prolonged stress or exposure to prolonged stress. Now, how, if you characterize burnout, it would be feeling of cynicism, which is more of cyclic behavior. Then it is a detachment that a person feel whenever he is into a group, and he will feel a kind of a detached or a ostracized personality. There would be lack of accomplishment when he would be motivated to do a certain thing. Because of lack of accomplishment, there would be a lot of retraction from his work environment.
Okay, so definitely he would be not productive as
Not,
much as
yeah,
he was
yeah.
there before.
So
Right?
now, if you see how it is different from the regular stress, it is a chronological or chronic stress that a person is exposed to. Now, when a person is into chronic state and if we are not able to attain it or mitigate it, there will be a lot of physical and emotional ailments that a person can go through. So that is the first thing.
So how would you define what do you mean by emotional exhaustion, Sim, and how would an HR would help?
Now, this would be a kind of a
Understand.
red flag. When you look at any employee and you want to identify as an HR, what are the red flags and what are the telltale signs in an employee? That then there would be three categorization of that. You would see those three red flags into physical, emotional, and behavioral changes that he would be going in. So the first is the emotional exhaustion, in which the employee would be feeling drained. He will be always complaining about not feeling motivated, not feeling in his flow. That is what
Okay.
he would complain more about. There would be lack of motivation of taking any kind of new projects, or even if he's into a project, he would be not completing that particular process or project. Then it would be somewhere he would be showing certain kind of irritability. Maybe if you align them for a certain kind of change in roles, giving them added responsibilities, or even going for a different training programs. So there would be an irritation that you would feel into emotional exhaustion.
Would there be any kind of anger which we'll be able to see while
Yeah,
working?
definitely. Then we'll see a physical exhaustion that can be also related to that, where we'll see there would be a fatigue. So a person would be lacking in terms of giving in 8 hours of his input into the work environment. Then there would be sleep deprivation.
Okay.
So when a person is going through this kind of anxiety and chronic stress, he would have a sleep deprived nights. That's why he is not able to focus on that. That would lead to headaches. There would be a gastric intestinal problems, and there would be a weakness of immune. So if you have employee who is taking regular, not regular, but in a month or in a quarter he is taking any kind of leaves which are pertaining to any viruses or influenza or any other things,
Okay.
then you can identify this particular person is going under certain kind of burnout symptoms.
Okay.
And when you go for behavioral exhaustion or behavioral changes, you will see there would be a reduction into productivity. There would be increase in absenteeism, as I told you earlier, because all those symptoms that are emotional and physical can be turned out into in a behavioral aspect. So absenteeism would be more.
Okay. So there will be a social withdrawal as well.
Yeah,
Right?
this
Through
is a major.
cynicism.
Yeah, this is a major point where you can see a social withdrawal, because now we are going to that particular phase where people are mentally and physically so exhausted that there won't be any kind of stamina to get into socialization. So he would always withdraw himself from that. So these are some of the red flags as an HR, and I think we have already seen those lot of many things,
Yeah.
right? When we have been into HR,
Yes.
and we have also felt ourselves as well sometimes. So those are some of the red flags that HR has to be very much aware of, And if we are not aware of, we have to educate ourselves around those.
So would you help us to understand more about, is there any personality trait which is visible for specific people and it's called as burnout personality? Some people are more prone towards that.
Right, right. So when we talk about any personality trait, but it is nothing defined as such. Any person who has been exposed to certain kind of stress levels, let's say some people are more susceptible to a certain workload, high workloads are there. So they would be experiencing a lot of work at the beginning of their career, and they can be pushed toward that kind of stress, where you can see the three steps that I told you, that physical, emotional, and behavioral. So that is one categorization of that. Second is when there is a lack of control. Now, when a person who is not understanding or not able to get a control on the feelings part, or when he has no control on the situation at work, there is a kind of anxiety that has been produced, and that can be converted into a chronic stress. So that can also be part of a personality profiling in which the stress or the burnout would be more susceptible to this kind of personality.
Can you give us some tips so how to control this?
Now there we'll come to the tip part of it when we as we progress in the podcast.
Okay.
But when we'll just talk about more about how these personalities are. So even the role ambiguity, because this is where we are as an HR, we have seen this. Because even if you have JD's design, even if you have role set, there are a lot of work or tasks that we are going away and beyond our roles, and we are doing it. So that also create the lack of control, and there is a heavy having overload workload. So that is also being created. So if you see, there is an ambiguity of role is also contributing to a certain kind of burnout. The lack of control is also a part of your ambiguity of role. So all these things are working in coordination, and these all things are also converting into lack of social interaction.
Is there anything which colleagues can help out to build some social support for the people, those who are going on?
Definitely. As you have said that as an HR, because I feel that HR being the centerpiece of the cultural or the environmental part of an organization, wherein we have to set in certain avenues and certain kind of initiative where we can make our employee talk about their mental health. So we're gonna in next section we're gonna talk about those, that how we can prolong, how can we just get into those particular discussion, how this culture can be formulated. So that would be the second stage of our discussion in this particular part. So coming to the question, Deepa, do you think that sometimes HR becomes a problematic or player in terms of inducing burnout into employees' role?
Yeah. Being an HR, even I feel sometimes this should not happen, but somehow unknowingly these things happens. Can HR also add on some stress or create some burnout for an employee? So to get you more clarity on how this thing started. So like sometimes we do some unrealistic expectations we set up for employee, and we ask them to do a lot of work which they are not able to do. So, for example, setting unrealistic expectations in terms of like sales, we have seen a lot of people
So you're talking about the
stressed out,
targets.
giving them more targets and asking them to work extras and then putting them. So, I think we should do some more addition to the task, whatever the targets we are assigning, that should be more realistic and approachable,
Right.
so that this will not lead to a burnout.
Right.
And adding to that, even like some people, if we assign them excessive workload, they are
Right.
happy to do, but for few of them, if we give more tasks, they feel stressed out. So
Right.
somehow we need to understand the basics of employee, how the employee is responding to the targets and how is doing. So based on that,
Right.
it should be redefined and make it more realistic.
Right.
So coming to the next point, so workload management should be done in a very proper way. So we have a lot of project management tools, they are available in market. So we should see how the entire workload has been managed within the team,
Right.
and how it is helping the company to grow and meet the target. So
Right.
that should be properly managed and should be assigned in such a way so that each and every employee has been assigned all the things on equal workload distribution, I would say.
Right.
And adding to that, so you have seen a lot of companies, they have very strict policy, like which are not at all flexible. So for creating such policies, we should stop saying somewhere we should stop making such kind of a policies where where the employee is not able to manage their workload properly, work-life balance, they are not able to do this. So because of that, some of the instances these people are on burnout and stressed out if they don't have any proper work-life balance.
So the flexibility that you're talking about, organization lacks in flexibility in terms of their policy, which have been drafted and which are not employee wellness centered or mental wellness centered. So what are the things that comes to your mind when we talk about this?
So if we talk about mental wellness, so I don't see a lot of companies doing it. So getting some mental wellness coach in their company,
Right.
adding on some uh, training modules to the within an employee, so that people feel somewhere they have someone to listen to and to follow some things like meditation, or there are some various techniques which are available to calm down and all those things. So even a personal should do self assessment.
Right.
So how when he feel relaxed, how he unwind himself while working out. So that would be some of the add-ons which we can do. So being an HR, we should create some kind of policies or do some add-ons with existing policies where we can also look out for the employee well-being part.
Right. Great. So Deepa, when you mentioned about workload and workload taking as a centerpiece, so what do you think? What HR can ensure how a fair workload can be given to the employee so that the burnout is not, an outcome?
Yeah. So this is very important. So basically, we should ensure that we are doing fair and regular assessment for all the people in their company, for those who are working with us. We should have a regular assessment which should be very fair, and people should come forward and talk about these things, how the mental stress, how is the, or you can say you'll have a regular check where you'll come to know about the mental well-being of an employee.
Right.
And also try to, I would say, HR should maximize the work, maximize the AI and automation part and
Right.
all of the job descriptions or all of the process what they're working on. So most of the part where repetitive work is involved, so they
Right.
should get it automated so that people would not be more stressed, because a
Right.
lot of this is also one kind of a retention as well. So a lot of people just shift because they are doing the repetitive task in the same company for a longer time. So I think we should always think on the career path aspects as well. So we should stop asking people to work on repetitive tasks, rather than make it automate, make use AI, which is very available, readily available in the market, and very useful tool to harness any of the technology moving
Right.
forward.
So you
So
were talking about, especially in recruitment, you were talked about one of the software that is AI that is available, which we can utilize, that can work as an ATS. And there was also one AI that you talked about, which was tracking offers, which are like collateral offers that has been taken down. So can you just
yeah,
give that?
so for ATS kind of thing, we can use a lot of HR1 softwares are there. Then we have ClickUps to do the
ClickUps.
project management part, so which is very beautifully designed with a tech entrepreneur. So in which you can track from initial level to the end, what is the cycle what we have been following with the individual candidates. So,
Right.
and apart from this, there are I would say there's one very good platform called as OfferX, which is very growing in the market right now, very readily available. Even if you do punching the data of getting offer. So
Right.
suppose if you interview a candidate, so you just ask to interview the candidate, and then we see a lot of people are just not joining the company. So in this platform, you'll just add on the things in the market. You can even black out the people. You'll come to know the same candidate is interviewing another companies he's getting so and so offer,
Right.
and finally you'll be able to assess whether he's going to join or not. So
Right.
this, I think most of the HR fraternities should use this very readily, so that we can have a very good market repo in our company.
I think this is very important because HR himself or herself has to really look into their roles and how they can, minimize the daily in and out of the job, with the tactical job that we talk about. So AI is readily available. We are not sponsoring any AI. Also, no, none of the AI company which we have mentioned in this particular podcast is not being sponsored over here. We have utilized those. I think Deepa has been regularly utilized, and that is her feedback. Why she is giving this feedback? Because that has actually reduced her workload to a certain extent that can reduce a bit of a burnout. So that is one thing that everybody, as an HR, you also have to make a laundry list of all the AIs that are role specific. Like an accountant AI would be there, an AI which would be sales targeted, and AI would be marketing targeted. So all those, if you are able to study the role, when you talk about JDs, as we have talked about,
even at least if you're not purchasing, have a demo, and there are a lot of free tools
right,
available which you can use, and you'll come to know whether this is going to help you or not.
right.
So once you try, then only
Great, great.
no.
And what do you think about encouraging open communication when it comes to burnout? What do you think as an HR? How important it
So
is?
I think we also tried a lot of
Mm,
things to minimize from our end in
mm,
most of the companies, but somehow that won't work. So
mm.
if you have some third person coming into your
Right,
organization
right.
and doing those things for you, because
Mm,
as you know, the posh is one of the policy where
right.
we have people from
Mm,
outside coming into our org, helping the internal community,
mm,
internal organization,
mm,
to speak with them very
mm,
openly. So
mm,
I think this kind of a culture should come
mm.
for employee well-being part as well. So
Right.
where we should be more focused on getting some third parties
Mm,
onboarded
mm,
for
mm.
employee, and where the employee is very open with that
Yeah,
person
got
and
got
could
your point.
understand his problem, and then we'll be able to find the root cause of this thing, and
Mm,
we can redefine his
right,
roles, and
right.
or rather move him to different project or
Mm,
different department. We
mm.
can give IGP. So all this process can be very helpful if we are able to know if the employee is really getting
Right.
burnout, what are the symptoms and all those
So
things.
if I want to just encapsulate what Deepa has said right now is employees has to be provided a safe psychological space. Psychologically, they have to feel safe.
Yeah.
When the third party comes in, the employees who are sharing about their anxiety or maybe any kind of mental issues that are there, they will feel less threatened and more open to be discussed rather than that particular information can be taken against them. So I think as an HR, we have to be very open to this particular culture and normalize any kind of mental health issue that has been shared by the employees. So I think the third party consultant or even organization like us, where Wisdom Seed makes certain initiatives which wherein we set counselors on on office premises and definitely we are what we are taking those confidentialities and safety rules are there so that even the information that has been shared which is sensitive and then the employee don't want to share those with the employer, then also it is okay because that comes under the right of mental healthcare act 2017. So that gives the privilege and that gives a right for an employee to not to share information to the employer, and that particular right has been given to them. So a very good point, Deepa. I think this is something very important. As a posh, as you said, as a posh law is so sensitive towards security of women. I think mental wellness is also one of those area that we have to
So
look
we have
into.
seen a lot of cases coming up from
Mm,
different Deloitte, and then
mm,
some other big companies, big
mm,
four companies. So
mm.
I think let's keep the law aside and let's start moving. We should be always proactive rather than like taking decisions or working on it later on. So we
Right.
should proactively do these things so that we'll not face these kind of issues in our organization.
Great.
So let's shift our gear the next part.
Yeah.
So, how can HR become more powerful in terms of, say, preventing burnout at the organization? So,
Now, Deepa, what I have seen in most of the organization that there should be HR when it comes to HR and HR who is at the center point of formulating a culture. The one thing that he suppose or he or she has to promote is a healthy work culture. Now, when we talk about healthy work culture, we always gravitate towards open communication and we formulate open door policies which are there already. But how effective those are? Are we really following those to the grassroots level? Are we making procedural improvement? Are we really tracking down how those particular open communication are really tracked, how are being analyzed, and what are the outcomes? And with that outcomes, how we are able to, which are the feasible one and which are non-feasible one? Because there would be a lot of grudges and expression that would come into open communication, but we have to make sure as an HR that which problems would be feasible to be incorporated into work culture. So that is one thing. Then encouraging work-life balance is one thing that has been talked a lot. But when it comes to work-life balance, I think the most important part towards it is, culturing or nourishing the self-respect of the employee.
okay, before we move forward to this, so I would like to know more about what do you mean by work culture?
Now, when we talk about work culture, if I talk about culture as such, it starts from top to bottom. It is never pushed from bottom to top. Now, why, if you see in this particular work environment, all the norms and rules are really propagated from senior level to the junior level. So let's take an example in a meeting. If a higher level manager is not questioning his authority, the same behavior would be learned by the junior employees. Okay, and then there would be a culture of not questioning the status quo, not questioning the authority. So now, why when I'm talking about culture, it is always like a parenting kind of thing. Leadership is more of a parenting. So I'm not saying that they are adult, but when you say about culture which has been established, it is always established from a power matrix. So person who on a higher power would always have a more eligibility in terms of how an influence, eligibility and influence to how the culture has to be propagated.
Yeah, that's true. But I think coming down to the latest thing going on in the market, so somehow Gen Z and millennia, there's a different work culture these
Right.
people are working on, and how would the top management address this kind of issue?
Now, one thing that we have to understand that Gen Zs are more vocal about their needs and their wants. They are more aware of their identity when it comes to personality. What kind of elements that personality makes of, and they are very vocal about it. The previous generation, when we talk about millennials and the later the sandwiched generation, I would say, they have a kind of an personality which is very much abide by the laws of the authorities, and there is certain sense of freedom as well. But these, I would say, are less vocal about their needs. And what happens when a person who is from a millennial generation, he becomes a manager, he will always expect a Gen Z to mold to his way
Yeah,
of
that's
management
where the
style.
things start,
That
right?
that's where the friction starts.
Friction starts.
So this is where when you are managing as a manager from a millennial, because now those millennials will be in their 40s, 45s, and 50s. So they would be holding a strong position, leadership position into the corporate ladders. Now, this is the responsibility of the millennials to understand what is the requirement of Gen Zs. Gen Zs do comes with their own strength. They are very tech savvy. They are very open in communication. They are very good at experimenting, which millennials are lacking behind. So we can take those particular things and we can form a certain kind of a middle path where both of them can have a communion and make those team a very stronger one.
Yeah, those things are fine in terms of technology, but somehow work ethics, what we say in the market, that is missing in Gen Z. And millennia, these people have very, very raw, strong work ethics, and these people are working for years together, and then they know how the culture is built. So somehow when Gen Z and millennia come together, the work culture is getting a lot of frictions, a lot of disturbance from the existing flows, and you will also see the top management moving their I would say moving their benefit parts in a different way, because to cater the need of Gen Z, they are doing a lot of modifications in existing policies, or going beyond the policies and helping them to sustain. So somehow the what I would say, like Gen Z, these people, even it's hard to retain Gen Z people in market, and even Gen Z are also not very clear about their career path as well. So a lot of people we have seen Gen Z, they are like moving down their careers from say designer to say product manager, or maybe from product manager then move into some fashion industry. That's what the thing is happening
Right.
right now.
So when I talked about promoting healthy culture, and one aspect that I talked about, that promoting respect. When you talk about respect,
That's
it is about understanding the person as they are whole. Because we have a cherry picking kind of a personality when it comes to managing people, because we want the good part of the people and we don't want the bad part of them. But we have to understand, as a millennial or any management or people leaders that are there who are listening to this podcast, that we have to understand that we are going to accept the person as a whole. So when it comes as a whole, we have to also see the negative part of it, and we can see that how those negative part can be molded, can be shapen out, or can be flourished, or can be muted down. So now this is where when I talked about, and when you talked about why HR has to get rid of their entire tactical roles to AI, and after that time is left, when they are freed, they have to tackle these issues. They have to strategize their behavior to understand how Gen Zs are formulated, what their personality is, and how we can incorporate into our work culture. So this is where, when I talked about promoting healthy work culture, it is a very bigger umbrella. It is not just giving respect and taking respect. It is understanding what kind of respect is talking with Gen Z. It might be that as a millennial, I would say leaving on time or going on time or giving extras would be a kind of a respect. But for Gen Z, it would be totally different. We have to understand. We are still not able to understand as millennial leaders. That is where we are failing. And as an HR, we also understand. I'm not talking about millennials are failing. I'm talking about the culture that is created is failing a lot of Gen Zs to stay with us. That is where.
So that's why how the flexible work thing comes
Yes,
into
that
picture.
is where you have to be more flexible. So offer flexible work arrangements. So where we see Gen Zs are very much, maybe a lot of Gen Zs that I have talked with, they prefer more sleep over work.
Yeah.
I mean, we have this kind of a notion of Gen Zs that they would be more of, chills and Netflix and chills. But there has been a research where Gen Z prefer a lot of sleeping hours rather than any other things, because you have to understand what Gen Z is made of. They are the people, though this is generation which has been taught by mobile phone.
That's
They are
true.
parented by mobile phones. And let me be very honest, when you talk about mobile phones, you get confused with the kind of information in terms of social imaging is there, personality development is there, how cultural aspects are there. It's very confusing.
Yeah, so in this confusing market, people are moving ahead. So the thing which I said, right, Gen Z are moving their career. So
Right.
this all thing comes from the
Right.
media part, right?
This is where
They are
parenting leadership is not about, when I say parenting leadership, it is a new concept that I want to talk about. Parenting is not about, micromanaging. Parenting is not about making them strict or being strict or, cutting them short into one mold. That is not parenting leadership. Parenting leadership is more about enabling them in becoming more what they want to be, which would be only in directional way, not in forcing way. That we can show them direction, because what has happened because of the information overload that is going into this particular generation, because you can understand how confused they would be. And within that cyclone of information, they have to know which path I have to go. So this is where millennial will come in play. So millennial would be a kind of a lighthouse in the stormy wind, that you can say, that where we can refer that, okay, I have to go into that direction. So can you just guide me? So Gen Zs are really looking towards millennial to formulate a leadership which is directive, not what I can say, not forcefully making them directive, but formulating a path. So this would take some point. This will take some friction. This will take some time. This will take some patience on millennials as well as Gen Z. Millennials have to be more patient. I would feel. I think that is where we are.
I think there is a lot of research going on
Yeah.
with Gen Z and millennials.
Yeah.
This will take a separate podcast
Yeah,
for
this
us
will
to
take a.
work on.
But when you talk about this particular aspects, and when we want to make a healthy work culture and then making it a flexible work arrangement, this would all come into play. That we are talking about, remote working. Like remote working is something that is, favored by Gen Zs, or flexible work hours.
So, Abhijit, what do you think? Which one is better? Is a hybrid work more, or complete from office, or complete remote? So,
Right.
as per considering the mental health part,
Right.
so what you would think is the best one?
Okay. So regarding this, this is a very valid point, Deepa. I would really recommend what in my research, or maybe my observation, that has been very much highlighted, that the more you spend time on screens, the more depressed and anxiety-led lifestyle is being provoked. Okay. So in that scenario, what I would suggest is, let have a hybrid kind of a work environment where people have to come and meet, because we have to understand that social connections, social interactions are also anxiety antidepressants. So it makes a very different aspect when you talk to people, when you express yourself. Definitely, people who are accommodating and inclusive, definitely when you talk to them, most of your anxiety and depression can be nullified, or at least curbed in certain way. So these kind of hybrid environment, where we can HR can incorporate that, whenever compulsory coming to a work premises would be there, we can arrange an activity, or we can arrange a town hall, or we can arrange a workshop which talks about anxiety and depression or mental health, or anything that is a value add, rather than just calling to them onto premises. But we can have certain kind of a different aspect towards it. Okay. So that can be, and where we can actually nurture the relationship between the management and the team. That can be one facet that I can say, that if you have a month of if month is there, you can have 2 days that can compulsorily be a day where you can come to the office and you can reconnect.
Why not complete remote? Completely work from office.
That's what I'm saying, because when you are in remote, the human interaction that I said, that why this generation Gen Z is feeling lonelier, because it's totally different on interacting on screens and interacting in person. Because we lack in social skills when it comes to interaction in Gen Zs and millennials. Millennials are someone who loves to have an one-on-one interaction. I think the way we connect biologically and physiologically and mentally when we are interacting together in front one-on-one, it is totally different from when it is on screens. It is very, what I can say, a second-hand experience, I would say. It is less of a dimension. When we come to a close, we have a 3D experience of the person. We can understand the tone, we can understand the body language, we can understand the warmth when we are interacting. So that builds up a new way of interaction, and that also create a certain kind of neurologically induced hormones, which interaction would lead to connections. Okay.
So one more thing I've heard from you from lot many times. So what do you mean by cognitive diffusion? So that comes in my mind always. So
when we talk about, it's a cognitive is a very term that has been utilized into psychology, and when you talk about cognitive is about how you interpret the world with your senses. Okay, so the world has been in front of you, and your five senses are there. So you filter out every information from that five senses. Okay, most from your eyes. Okay, and based upon that, you develop a kind of an understanding, a feeling, and based on that understanding and feeling, you would have a behavior attached to it. So when you talk about the combination of this response, that is called as cognition. So when you make certain scenarios there, you interpret it, and when you have a certain kind of emotion and emotion-led behavior, that is a cognition. So you understand by all senses. So that is what cognition is all about.
So can being an HR, can someone help to make some kind of an environment where these people feel free to interact or feel, so I would say, calm the employee, or some kind of sessions which
Yes, right.
would help us?
So I do understand when it comes from you, as you have been into 14 years into HR, and I was also working in the same domain, and I had a certain inclination towards human psychology, and I try to understand why certain people behave in a certain way, why they are not, they are motivated in certain scenario and they are not. Some of them are not. So every scenario talks differently to an employee. So when it comes to an HR, I know this would be a where all in HR would be on caution that, oh my God, I have to learn about psychology now. So I just want to make you guys relax that you don't have to learn everything. You can outsource it to somebody. Okay. So like we have employee assessment programs that are coming in, which actually called as EAPs, which are very much it was invented in 1980s, and it is very much progressed into lot many organization on global level. But EAPs are somewhere, I think, taken backseat when it comes to Indian organization, because I think mental wellness is looked as a taboo in Indian culture, or we don't have a healthy way of looking at mental wellness. We do have a lot of physical ailments and how to cure them and what kind of or what not. But when it comes to mental health, we have a very narrowed vision towards it. So what happens if you want to create a healthy environment around it? You can give those to the experts. So we can have EAP, that is employee assessment programs, which include counseling employees on their mental health, their physical health, their financial health. Because understand, when you have to create a psychological safe environment, it would have different aspect of human needs. Okay, physiologically I have to feel safe, security wise I have to feel safe. Security is all money, how money would be targeted, how my policies are, how my savings are, how my equities are, how my future looks as far as money is concerned, and how my health is. So when you have all those elements and counseling or making them aware of that, that would create an psychological safe environment. So EAP is an answer to that.
So is this kind of a training program which we can give for
It is,
managers, or
yeah.
specific set of people?
I would say not only manager, every person who has a cognitive ability in your organization, who thinks, feels, and understand things, he has to know how you have to train your brains. Okay, so there are a lot of intervention we call as mindful workshops that you can do. So because of the busy or the hustle culture that has been created, or the kind of workload that we usually handle, we have a very untrained mind. We are working with a very untrained mind, which takes every scenario as a threat most of the time. So there are mindful workshops that can HR can organize. They can have psychological intervention. If there is a serious problem, they can call upon a counselor on board who can actually consult those employees which are suffering from this particular issues. A lot many people in management, into workers, in all levels, are really not aware that they are going from a mental issues. So that how ignorant and that how
But
taboo it is.
separating them from an individual and having one-on-one sessions will make them feel bad, don't you think so?
No,
So would there be any certain kind of open sessions which is
yeah,
which
definitely.
so that employee is able to understand, is he going to certain kind of
Right,
a stress
right,
or not,
right.
and then we can have one-on-one sessions with
Definitely, I can understand.
counselors.
Yeah, I can understand the the negative connotation towards it.
Yeah.
Because we have to really normalize. We are into that stage that we really have to normalize mental illness as physical illness.
Yeah.
We have to see those mental illness as a physical illness. We have to bring them at one platform. We can't say that mental wellness has to be hidden. It has to be, that is a taboo that we are creating. We have to make it a an regular or normalized practice. So how this can be done? As I was talking about the work culture, and it comes from top to down. So in as an HR, as a part of EAPs, or as a part of mental workshops or mental health training, I would say the leadership has to come in front and talk about their mental illnesses or mental errors or mental stresses, that how they have dealt with it, how they have been able to conquer, and how they are able to conquer this particular position. Because I think every person in this world has really fought with anxiety, depression, negative thoughts. Everybody has fought about it. Yeah, definitely everybody has a different condition, but if you are able to expose those particular conditions, then there would be a lot of environment which would be nurturing, psychological safe environment. So that is what I want to suggest over.
So, Abhijit, we have heard about lot about flexible work arrangement. Okay. So, would you explain like what is the concrete examples and how it will help us?
Okay, flexibility or arrangement of flexibility in work is very much important, and we have talked about one of the possibility, that is there are two possibilities. One is providing a mental health support so that employee can feel psychologically safe. As I give an example about how EAP and counseling and mindful workshop can help in that particular aspect. But when it comes to tactical work, as we were talking about, that automation can be one of the most important part in reducing the tactical work out of the any profile that is there with the help of AI and automation. But when we are doing automation, we have to make sure that it is ethically done.
Right.
Yeah. So when we talk about ethically done, there are certain aspects where HR has to look into those particular aspects, so that there is no unnecessary panic and unnecessary anxiety that can be an outcome of automation that is going to run into the organization. Because we have already seen as an HR,
Yeah.
whenever there is an automation, there is a kind of a panic environment, that whose job, who is going to be the next one, who is going to axe out. And I think
Adding to automation now, AI is there.
AI is coming there. So already, even the organization are also looking for those particular options which are financially more viable, manageable, and more profitable. So all those things would come. But when it comes to ethics, and when we see human as the centerpiece of this particular work culture, because we have to understand that every human who is working with an organization usually have an identity related to work. So when you talk about psychological aspect, so when I see myself as Abhijit, I can identify secondly as an HR. Okay, a person from an HR domain. When you see Deepa, what 70% of our life is targeted to is being entitled as HR manager or HR VP or whichever role that you go into. So our human identity is also related to our work. So when we are doing automation, we have to see in that, are we really destroying the entire entity of the person, and are we making him purposeless? Because every human being is living their life with a purpose, and job has become one of the purpose, a mean or maybe a purpose, because sometimes it is a mean to earn your bread and butter, and sometimes it is a purpose for you to have a content life. So that is two things. So when you do automation, you are either taking away the purpose or you're taking away the meaning. So when you are going to first thing that as an HR you have to do is you have to understand what is the impact. So figure out what are the tasks that are to be automated. Are we really automated the entire job, or are we just automating certain frictions and certain elements of that particular job? So AI would be accompanying with the tactical parts, which are day in and day out. But there would be certainly human part to that particular work that has to be
So how
done
would
by
you
human.
assess the impact,
So
basically?
this is where we have to see in that which are the repetitive tasks. So when you see what are the repetitive tasks, that if you're an HR and then you know that monthly returns is something repetitive, ATS is something repetitive, getting in the CVs, reading it out, aligning them for the interview, scheduling, sending the invites, getting the appointment. So you know the drill. You know how tactical any or technically or task part that particular
And
part is there.
sometimes the communication,
There are
clear
communication
communication
cloud.
makes a problem.
Right.
So when you automate the thing, even an employee will feel, yeah, this is the automated email to get a set a reminder, right, to
Right.
follow up.
Right.
So I would say to follow up is one of the major tasks of an
Right,
HR to
right.
get the things done.
So now
Okay.
when you see at this particular aspect of an HR, we know that communication is the humanized part of an
Right.
HR. So that can't be automatized right now. But we have to see the impact. So if this is where we do the first step as an HR, assessing the impact, which part of those particular part. And as AI is coming in picture right now, it will take at least 20-25 years to totally formulate an AI which can take the humanized part as well to certain level. But till then, what we can do? So first is assess the impact, which are the human aspect of your role that can be more enhanced. So second thing is like communicate clearly. So once you know what is going to impact, what is going to stay, and what can be improved, you have to communicate clearly to the employee. So that would reduce certain panic. Why communicating is clearly? Because clarity itself reduces the panic. So if you know
because
what
they
has
should
to be
have
done,
like what part of their job is going to be automated,
yeah,
what part of the thing they have to develop on their
right,
own, and what is the major thing which they'll be working on.
right.
Because some people are like having a lot of fear ki, if this is going to be automated, then what am I going to do
Guru,
now?
the purpose is gone.
Purpose is lost,
The
right?
purpose is lost. So this is where HR has to identify which, first of all, assess the impact, then identify the area, clearly communicated. Once the area has been identified, train people on enhancing that particular part.
Correct.
So none of us might be through 70% of time, if I'm doing tactical work, I would be very much expert in that of my role. But communication, I would be like 40-50 kind of skill set. So now I have to see what is the, like we have competency and we see the competency levels. So we have to see if the person is at 2, we can take him to 3. Okay, how we can do it. So training and skill, arrangement that would be there. Then after that, we have to monitor the effect. So once we are training that particular person, is that particular person really getting value add, and will it be absorbed back into the system that is AI led or automated?
Even we have said the recruitment part has been fully automated, but somehow there is still a need of getting it humanized on some of
Right.
the things, because the human aspect, as we said,
Right.
is the most important part, because recruiter is the first person, or you can say front facing for any candidate once before he joins into the organization, and recruiter gives a clear picture about the work culture, about the organization structure, what the current employer is branding, and also I think that we cannot automate.
We can't automate right now, and as you rightly said, because see technology as a bridge. Okay, what is a bridge? Is bridges for one human to connect with another human. So if you see a technology at the other end, who is utilizing it or who is processing or expecting an outcome is a human. The person who is processing at this particular point, who is delivering that service, is a human. So technology can be only bridge. Technology can't replace the entire human interaction. So that is something, it would enhance it. It would make sure that that interaction is enhanced, it is refined. But where it can be refined and how a human can be fitted into that, that is something that we have to do.
I still can't imagine how a robot will talk when it comes to resign and how to retain an employee, taking an exit interviews. So that would be again an amazing part to see in coming years. Right?
Yeah, I when I give this example to a lot of students, like when you have to propose anybody or you have to propose a girl, you can't do it on text, right? You have to have that organic a very visceral kind of an experience where you have to look into the eyes, you have to understand the tones, you have to have that body language. How you can automatize that particular experience, gelling up with your team members, understanding them. These elements can't be automatized. And building the trust. Okay, that is
even
one thing.
getting the hormonal impact on your body, so that is very like happy hormones
Yeah,
also get
happy
created.
hormones.
So that is definitely a need.
Yeah. So I think when we discuss about this, we have actually demystifying how AI, how it would be integrated into our roles. So integration of AI would be more tactical, wherein human existence would be more of becoming more humanized.
Yeah.
We are actually competing with AI. We don't have to compete with AI because AI will always will win, because AI is far more powerful in doing tasks.
Yeah, AI can win as an algorithm part, not as a human, right?
Yeah, but not as a human, because but when not as a human, when we become more human.
More human, right? That's true.
That's an important thing, because we have become more machine-like, we have become more transaction-like. But when we have that humanized aspect to our roles as an HR, this is where we are going to try and make impact as an HR. So that is main thing.
So as you know, feedback is the best gift, right? So how would you know, like employee feedback is very crucial, as you know. So can you define like how the feedback is best way to take a feedback, basically?
Definitely. When we talk about feedback is very important. But before having a feedback, I think the mechanism that has to develop around feedback, as I told you, the culture has to set wherein employee feels safe to express themselves, because feedback can be used against employees. And sometimes when we have a culture which says that, or which is being propagated in such a way that feedback would be used against you, then employee won't give you an honest feedback.
Yeah, even we say anonymous feedback, even sometimes there are loopholes.
Yeah.
Right?
So this is where we have to really think about innovative ways of where we can collect feedback. Though we have portals like Glassdoor, it is there, Ambition Box is there. So they do capture feedback, but if you see, most of the feedbacks are hate driven. And most of our CEOs are also very much sensitive about how the ratings are there.
Yeah.
And I think it's a very eye wash kind of an activity where you try to maintain your ratings over those particular portals. Correct. Just to show your you are a great place to work with. I have seen, in being into organization, I have seen that CEOs usually make that part as a KRA for HR to have 4+ or 4.5 as a rater. Yeah. Which is a very counterintuitive or counterproductive way of doing it, because you can't force people to give positive feedback. Okay. And feedback has to be, first of all, looked as an area, an insight, as the root cause of what are the different areas where we as an HR can culturally improve in our organization. So
as per your opinion, like how would you say, like we can keep it anonymous, the feedback would be anonymous,
actually,
even that I think ratings will definitely matter for all the companies, but at least they should know what the real feedback is coming in to the CEOs or the top management, so that they can think on that process, and somehow they will develop some few things in coming months or weeks.
I think where we look at feedbacks, and usually those are like exit interviews, what we see, and then we are actually seeing at the only end or the climatic feedback of your work environment. But that is not true. What we have to do is we have to develop a mechanism, as I told you earlier, that as we do our blood work, right? Every year we do our blood work to understand what is the level of cholesterol, sugar, and other hormones that makes us that as biomarkers, as we say, that states that if this biomarkers are in this level, that means you are healthy. So these are done on regular intervals. Don't keep your feedback anonymous at the end of your term of your employment.
Yeah, so
that is the wrong way.
Plus survey, right?
It's a kind of so you have to do a well or orchestrated feedback loops or mechanism, which are either quarterly, semi-yearly, or even rectifiable. When you see there is a lot of attrition that is happening, there are a lot of people who are going or leaving organization, there has been a trend analysis. So you have to do a trend analysis, which is called as pulse surveys as well. So pulse service can be quick, which can be done by third party, which can be handled by any other different organizations that can do, which can already identify a lot many aspects. It is not about mental health itself. There will be some procedural aspect as well. For example, for recruitment timeline, for how long it will take for me to apply for a job, and how long it will take for me interviewing, and how long it will take for the entire experience of interviewing. I would say. So sometimes your mental wellness or your irritation is also based upon the procedural delayed, or the kind of bureaucracy that is there, or there are multiple level of hierarchical approval that are there into procedural. So can we give a little bit of autonomy in that? So that is one way you can identify it, by having anonymous survey that is there, that is already there when utilized, but it has to be orchestrated or intervalized into different patterns. Then second, there can be a focus group. So if you see that there is certain kind of complaints that are more at a rise in certain groups, so we can have focus group interviews. So in which we are going to make a group, like let's say an organization or a function which is highly pressurized, like sales, marketing, or operations, maybe any of those. So we can have a focus group survey. Okay. So rather than just making a generalized survey, we can customize a focus group. So they can have. So we know that this is a crucial role, crucial
Suppose
department.
if you want to target upon sales,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So we can give them
We can do that.
department, and then
And there is also a classic suggestion box that we always do. Okay, so that can be there. So we don't have to only rely on to one survey that is at the end of your employment. And as I already mentioned, the pulse survey that can be done on quarterly basis or a semi-yearly. So you have to have a very good mechanism that is important, and which has to be timely scheduled, and it has to be monitored at point of time. Because and as I told you earlier, that we have to taking the all the aspect, negative as well as positive. This is where we can make sure that our organization pulse or health is at the optimum level.
Yes. So we have seen a lot of companies, a lot of big organization, I would say that they are doing a really great job towards addressing this burnout issues. So would you like to highlight some of them?
Yeah, surely. In my research on looking at how these policies are practiced by big fours or organizations which are on top of their games, Google has been one of the most I would say philanthropic or more of the employee centric culture, which is actually making a flexible work arrangements for their employees, which is talking about more of giving them benefit, including site wellness programs. There are mental health resources that are there. They have their websites, which they have portals on which employees can book their counseling session with the third party counselors, and they can have those particular budgeted budget given to those particular mental wellness. They also encourage an open communication and provide opportunity for the employees to disconnect and recharge. So this is very rare in an organization where we give even if we are in leave. So it is expected for us to be online, or somewhere we have to be connected to the workplace, because no matter, like, if God forbidden, if there is some kind of emergency, then who we have to hold on. So even if we say that there is a kind of a paid off, or you are going on a vacation, but still you are online. But this is where Google triumph in terms of mental wellness, where they are actually making a kind of disconnect as a right. So even if you have seen latest the news that is there of Australia, where the right to disconnect laws has been passed. So countries which are very much aware of this particular fact, that how disconnecting from work would ensure work-life balance.
This is really a good example of like being an employee-centric, creating a work culture which is employee-centric. Has become a need right now.
Right. So that is like, people feel like that is one of their they are doing one checklist activity, but it is not. It is one of the necessary activity. It's supposed to be at the core of your mental wellness.
Now getting Gen Z and workforce, that would be like a highlighter to attract them, right?
Right. And second example is of Salesforce. They also have a very strong mental health policy. They have started mental health days initiative. Now what they do is they do a company-wide shutdown. Now that is a very different and very non-traditional way of doing it. that they do a company-wide shutdown. So none of them are working at
Yeah,
that point of time.
recently we have also heard about Meesho being an e-commerce company
Right.
doing a shutdown for 9 10 days. It's
Right,
really a
right.
big decision making, right?
So I think the mental wellness is where you actually disconnect thoroughly, not
And
not
intermittent or
partially or
something.
not intermittently or those kind of thing, because the balance would be only that where you're focusing at that point of time. So that is very much important. And the third example that I want to give about is Deloitte. Now Deloitte have a comprehensive mental health strategy. It is like comprehensive when you talk about it, not go only with the cutting off or giving certain benefits, but they give counseling as a part of that their policy. Then they have a proper comprehensive trainings which are focusing on mental health. Then they also they have a program called as timeout. Now, uh, now the timeout concept from Google and from Salesforce is totally different. They are in this particular thing. They are also encouraging employee from taking leaves for their personal and physical well-being as well. So they are not restricting timeout to only physical ailments, but also extending that particular benefit to mental health.
So to be very specific towards
Yes,
that, the leaves are
specifically to mental health,
mental
because
health.
even a Japanese companies has given I don't know remember the name. It was one of the LinkedIn article, and Japanese company have actually given 21 days of mental health leave. So if somebody like on we have Monday blues
Yeah.
usually as a corporate organization, we have Monday blues that really creeps in on every Monday, or Friday kind of celebration you have to do it, and we usually term that as a sandwich leave.
Sandwich leave.
But organization are encouraging for employees to take those leaves. That you go ahead and
Yeah,
take
because
it.
when we have this kind of a vacation break or mental wellness break, so when people come out and they are really recharged to work on different
Right.
big assignments, I would say, with a fresh mind and with a fresh aspect, right? So that is
Right.
much necessary right now.
So now company has to really develop this particular part, that it is not the good thing to do, but it is a good business practice.
Correct.
To give this kind of leaves that are there. So the big fours are doing it. I think every organization who is operating on this level, and I feel human are all the same everywhere. We can't say they are in big fours, they are able to afford it. No, but at our level, what we can practice, that is also important. So, Deepa, in my observation, you have been hiring strategic leadership in your organization, and you have been doing it from past 4 to 6 years. So, I've always have a concern about how strategic leaders are being observed in an organization, and as an HR, how do you look at their mental wellness as a part when they are joining such a high pressure job? Okay. So how, as an HR, how you look at that particular practice? What kind of gaps are there into existing practices, and how we can improve those?
Yeah, so I would like to add upon this thing. Basically, most of the organization, the strategic hiring is done on haphazard way. Even I think those are interviewed upon the skill sets, the project, the targets, what they have made on.
Right.
So, but still they have to play a different role in different organization, because work culture, understanding the current org structure,
Right.
the thought leadership, the stakeholders, what they're going to manage is completely going to be a different. So to manage those things, there should be a strategic pause which is necessary before
So
getting them
when
on board.
yeah, so when you talk about strategic pause, is there any steps that you have to follow? Like, is there any pre, and during and post kind of a thing to it?
Yeah, so first of all, I'll add upon the thing is like pre-joining. So suppose a person is going to join your organization, he should have a like well-planned strategic pause in which he'll be having an interaction with stakeholders, understanding their thought leadership, interacting with them, and understand the role which he'll be when he'll be working on, what are the focused roles he'll be working on, and what aspects is, and based on that then he'll have some strategic plan developed, and then it also help to develop a relationship building with the key stakeholders. So in that kind of a strategic break or pre-retreat, you can say pre-joining retreat, you can say, which help the person who is coming in get a clear picture about his roles, responsibilities, building a relationship, and how he is supposed to work on
Right.
when he joins a big when he joins a project.
Right. Right.
So this will help us to get more clarity, and even the retention part would also increase, I would say. And there is one more thing we can say, the project onboarding. So this is during the joining process, or you can
Once he
during
is
once
into the
he
system.
is into the system. Suppose the person is there in the strategic leadership position, is working in your system, but he is supposed to go on a very high stake project in coming months. Okay, so he should be provided some kind of a pre-onboarding strategic break, which help us to uh, move ahead from his day-to-day roles and responsibilities. He should have a break on that, and then have a vacation where he'll be able to understand his mental well-being. He should be focused on how he'll be more focused on including deep dives into its goals, risk, and what are the resources he required. And this will give him a clear picture, as the other day-to-day responsibilities are not there. So the person getting project getting him onboarded on a different high stake project. So before that, he should have a strategic break or pause, you can say.
All right.
So coming back to the next point, is regular and reflective practices, which should have like mindfulness, meditation, and mentorship to help him develop his leadership process and strategize him effectively. How he'll be able to strategize the thing.
Great. So to encapsulate the entire process, you're talking about that. Definitely, there is a haphazard way of onboarding strategic leadership where you see that these are the high stake, high pressured positions, and definitely the mental wellness of these leadership is at the pinnacle of every organizational strategic success. Definitely, that is one of the thing that is hindsighted when we look at mental state, or we just want leader to get on board and on performance as soon as possible. But if you see the diluted version of this as well, when I was working with my previous organization, and there was a program to onboard women after maternal breaks or women with career gaps. So it was a great initiative altogether. But the thing is, like, are we really, we as an HR, we have to ask this question that definitely we are getting those employees onboarded. As you said, there should be some strategical break for highly stakeholder, positions. But I think it has to be done at regular initiative as well when you are including women after a long break, because the tempo has been broken. There is a different mindset altogether. The person, the employee itself is lagging behind into certain kind of new technology, new way of handling things. So upskilling them. So this, if you see at the higher level as well, if you have to see at lower level as well, and at the lowest level as well. So if you have 3-step plan to have the strategic break to be included, it would be more beneficial, because I think this is a very valid point.
Yeah, because taking a strategic pause will make them recharge and then re-energize, reflect, and make them prepare for going before they join the job actually. So that would be a definitely a new challenge for them. But I think being an HR, we should give a clear picture about this is what the work would be, and this is the thing which will be. So before these people take a decision, especially the women who come after a break. So when you set the expectations, set the clarity on the day one, then these people would make them ready themselves before they join the organization.
Very true. So first you have to give them a pre-joining retreat that would make them situated in what is expectation, what are the stakeholders, what kind of set expectation that you are expecting.
Relationship building.
Yeah. The second would be project onboarding, when we would be immersing them into the deep diving goals that are of this particular role. And we would be definitely giving them the risk and the resources that we are providing, so that they would have a framework in which they have to operate. And once the framework is given, then we have to give them ongoing support when they are into that particular position, like giving them counseling, giving them different mental wellness training that would make sure that these people are really performing well. So very holistic way of looking at. I think it's a very good insight, Deepa. And I hope the listeners who are listening to this have certain kind of food for your thoughts to inculcate or develop certain policies which are there for your strategic roles.
Yeah, so let's have a breakthrough. So this question has been there in mind for a lot of people, and especially to the employee and for the HR. So HR is an advocate or a puppet. So I would like Abhijit to add on his things And like being an HR professional, those who want to be a true advocate for employee well-being, what are your thoughts?
I think my biggest advice and what I want to encourage every HR who is listening to this to be more of an advocate than the puppet in the organization, because this point in time it has presented a very unique opportunity for the HR to be champion for employees and create a workplace where everyone can thrive. Now, how you have to do this is by being more bold and courageous. This is like, you have to advocate for policies and practices which are employee centric. That even means like if you have to challenge any traditional policies and challenge the status quo. Uh, because when you are advocating, you are actually pushing back which is not working right now, which are dysfunctional in their way of application. Because we have seen that none of our and the rise in burnouts and rise in suicidal case has actually shown us that the policy that we are administrating right now as an HR are failing somewhere to curb the problem of burnout. So there are a few things that I want HR professional to practice. Is first, they have to educate themselves, because as I told you earlier that being educated about how burnouts are there, what are the different researches that are going on in terms of how burnout get reflected into employees, either it is emotional, physical, or behavioral aspects. So that would make them aware that what are the red flags into employees and how they can curb on that. Secondly, I want them to gather data, because when you are going to take leadership buy-ins, you can't even only say that this particular person is physically not well or whatever. But if you have a data which actually reflects the well-being, that can be through surveys, focus group data, and other feedback mechanism. And as I told you earlier, that feedback mechanisms are there, but they are not utilized to the entire result orientation. So that is second thing. The third thing that I want HR to do is to build business cases. So we can go back and see what are the strong business cases that are there in and around, and we can investigate in employees' well-being initiative. So as I talked about the successful organization which has already made certain policies into well-being, like Google, Deloitte, and Salesforce. So can we take those particular case studies and can apply those into our businesses? So that is another thing. The third and the fourth thing I would say, that collaborate with leadership, because culture, as I told you, it is a top to down approach. It is not something that goes from down to top. So culture, you have to collaborate with leadership. You have to understand what are their expectation, what are the philosophy that they are guiding in, and how to align those, how to get their cultural support, how to get the support and buy-in for this particular policies to be run. And the lastly is measuring the impact. As I told you that automation and ethical automation is something that is on the brink and on the verge or around the corner of this particular decade, I would say. Lot many organizations would be adapting to AI. They have already adapted to AI. There are a lot of layoffs that are happening due to AI, but as an HR, we have to make sure that what is the impact on the well-being of the initiative automation and how it has been demonstrated into their lives and how effective we can make them. So that is also one thing.
Okay, great. So, any thought you would like to give to our listeners?
So when I see this, and I would like every listener who is there to address burnout not just to fix problems, because if you look at it as a problem and it has to be fixed, it won't be done in a right way. Because it is like a symptom. It is symptom, like it is just like a fever, which is talking about burnout is just a symptom. It's talking about fever in your body out of infection. So first of all, try to make sure that you don't create an infection itself. So how you can do that? By creating a workplace where employee feel valued, supported, and empowered. Okay. So and why we have to do that? Because they would do their best work when they are doing this. So by prioritizing mental well-being, we are building a more engaged and productive and a resilient workforce. As an HR, we have to make sure that this particular workplace psychological or mental safety is ensured by our practices, our entire way of looking at burnout as more of a symptom rather than something to be cured on, to be fixed on. That would give more insight for HR to develop a culture.
Yeah, and I would say rather the thing Abhijit has said right now. So being valued is the most key for an
Right.
employee to retain or to work to become more productive. So each and every HR fraternity should work towards how we can create a value for employee and how employee is being valued at their organization. How is thought? Oh, that's it.
Great. So I think we have come to our wonderful discussion, Deepa. I would thank you for joining me on this podcast and sharing your insight. I also want to thank to everybody who has been joined to this particular podcast and listened to this particular entire podcast. So anything that you want to learn about or want to be in touch in terms of how mental wellness can be a value added practices in your organization, you can definitely check our website. You can also get connected with Deepa in terms of any kind of HR BP related to strategical or AI-led HR functions that she hold expertization into. And do not forget to subscribe and comment on this particular podcast so that the engagement would be more. We are available to guide you as Wisdom Seed is into space of mental wellness. We can be collaborating together to make sure that the workplace environment is far more conducive, far more inclusive, and far more safe environment for employee to perform. So thank you for joining us, and we will be joining back for our next podcast as soon as possible. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Abhijit.
Thanks.